Welcome to Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. Enjoy this special 5-part mini-series, Back to Nature, Understanding the Four Elements, featuring special guest Kimmy Haliburta. So take a break from the noise of everyday life to reconnect with nature's elements and perhaps have an aha moment that may change your life. Hi everyone, Dr. Sandra Marie here, and welcome back to our special mini-series exploring how we can partner with nature for grounding and nervous system regulation. In our first 2 episodes, Kimmy Haliburta and I explored the relationship of the elements to the 4 directions, east, west, south, and north, and then we explored the element of fire. Today, we turn to another powerful force in nature and within ourselves, water. While many spiritual and wellness teachers encourage us to spend time in nature, we don't often hear much about why these natural elements affect us so deeply. Yet across ancient traditions, from Greek philosophy to Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, and many indigenous teachings, the elements were understood as living forces that influence our emotional, physical, and energetic well-being. Water in particular has long been associated with emotion, intuition, adaptability, and flow. Just as rivers move and reshape the landscape, water also teaches us about moving through the emotional currents of our life rather than resisting them. Today we'll explore how the element of water can support emotional, regulatory, restorative energy and balance in our modern lives. Kimmy, welcome back.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, I'm excited. Water is a big one. Let's dive into the element of water. Why do you think the element of water is especially important for people?
Well, water reflects our inner world reflects our outer world. And when you think about water and you think about the emotions and your dreams, if you have dreams about water, depending upon what the water is doing, can reflect what's happening in your life, your waking life, to cause said dreams. So, whether you're being consumed by a tsunami or whether you're floating around in a pool or whether you're going for a nice dip in a lake or whether you're trapped under a waterfall, water is incredibly powerful, but it's also telling as far as where we're at in our emotional state and our mental well-being.
Well, since our bodies are made up of so much water, how does that physical connection influence the way water affects each of us?
That's such a good question. It really is. Is that something I was thinking of? Is water is a fundamental building block of life. Well, and I want to pose something before I answer your question, is that so our last episode we did fire. We started big, we started with fire.
Yeah.
But water is just as big as fire, and water takes out fire, right? If you don't have a balance, and then it creates steam, and that's where we get the element of air. But anyway, but that's what it makes you think of. It's just so funny how everything is interconnected in that way. But fire, there's not really a living organism in fire. Fire cleanses, fire clears, fire destroys, fire can also create and transform. But water, when we think of water, we think of life and living organisms. Although we associate energy and vitality and willpower to fire, water is just as much as a life force as fire is. Possibly more so in some ways. And so when I think about how it is connected to our physical bodies and how we consist of about 70% water, I think of all the different ways that we truly do have a lot more control over our bodies and our emotions than we think. And I say this as somebody, not from an ableist perspective, as I do actually have a really awful chronic migraine condition. That doesn't mean I succumb to that all the time. Sometimes I tell my body, we're absolutely not getting a migraine today, and I won't. But I say that from a perspective of when we feel out of control or we feel our health is out of control, we really do need to reflect upon our emotions and see how our emotions are affecting not only our energetic body, but our physical bodies. And also, in that, look for the opportunities to change.
So, in this series, we're talking about really leveraging and partnering with nature.
Mm-hmm.
So, when someone goes out in nature, what are some of the different ways that they can experience water? I know people who will tell me that they always have to live by water, like life
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel right for them or doesn't seem to go well with them if they're not by water. And I find that interesting because a lot of people who will identify as spiritual
Mm-hmm.
really focus in on having to be around water. And when I thought about it, I thought, well, where I grew up in Cleveland, I was a couple miles away from a Great Lake. And then, when I was in Florida, I lived off the Gulf, and in the Middle East, I was on the Persian Gulf. And I would have never said I was a person who had to have water in my life. But I also, since the age of 14, worked at a city pool, became a lifeguard, and actually put myself through college working as a lifeguard for a lot of years through that period. So what I realize is water really plays more of a role in my life than I thought. And being here on the farm, you've got responsibilities and chores. So that means you're outside regardless what the element is.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's high winds and pelting rain, there's something about being outside or experiencing nature and rain that has always spoken to me. But I was never really sure why.
Well, I think that's really interesting about about every time I talk to you, you tell me something new about yourself that is so cool. You're like, oh yeah, I was a lifeguard. That no big deal. I just put myself through school. It's always like you have these really cool parts of yourself that I don't know if you see them as very interesting, but I certainly find them
Actually,
interesting. And
actually, I don't. It sort of just is.
it just is. I totally understand that. But because people get really fascinated with the stuff that I do, and I'm like, I don't know, girl. This is just what I do. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. So I just want to say, I think that's fascinating. It also doesn't surprise me because you've worn many hats in your lifetime, and you'll continue to wear many as you go forward. So water. It's also important to make the correlation between water and growth, and nothing grows without water, and we don't grow without emotional regulation. And so when I think of water, I also think of growth in a literal, physical, and a metaphorical sense.
Okay.
So it doesn't surprise me that you were a lifeguard at all. So you have developed into quite an interesting person and quite a spiritual person. But as we were talking about in the previous episode, and the point of this series is to help people understand how they can use the elements in their daily lives, or how they can become more conscious of the elements in their daily lives or in their practice, their daily practice. And so water, we talked about fire and how you can let go of things, but you can also manifest with fire. Water is a big one for me because I am very much a Scorpio sun. Water is huge for me. And so I'm not a person who has to live by the water, but I have to spend some amount of time in the water on a regular basis. So whether that's swimming, whether that's being in a kayak, whether that's going and looking at waterfalls, I have to have some time around water, or I just don't feel very regulated. I use water often as a way to focus and to meditate. I do a lot of those meditations during, like, so I take salt baths. And so I'll take an actual shower first because nobody wants to sit in their own gross, right? So take a shower and then I'll do a salt bath. I make lots of different types of bath salts as well. And I sell them to locals and I also ship them. But anyway, and I make them for manifestation purposes or for healing or letting go or whatever it is, but typically manifestation. And I'll take a bath. And then when I drain the tub, like I imagine almost like a murky water coming off of me. And then I go and rinse off just quickly again. And I put lots of different herbs and such in my bath salts. And so in that way, I use water as almost a way to meditate. That and I just take super ungodly long showers. That's like, why do you need to be in the shower for that long? And I do that every day. Every day.
So that's interesting. And it's an interesting thread because when we talked about fire, we talked about how we can move the element into the home without actually always having to be out in nature, that we could still experience nature even when we're in our homes. But so I think with the showers, I hear a lot of people talk about that. And they'll talk about how they came up with the epiphany or the biggest idea or a creation while they were in the shower or when they got out of the shower.
Yes.
So your thoughts on how these long showers really stimulate our thought process, our intuition, and our creativity?
So that's so funny you say that because last night I took a bath because of course I did. And I had my little Lush bubble bar. Anyway, I didn't go all spiritual last night. I wanted fun colors in my tub. And as soon as I got out, I immediately ran back to my bed, just towel on, ran back to my bedroom and sat on the bed and wrote a poem for 45 minutes. Just straight up was like, just right. I wasn't even thinking. I was like, this is what I need to write. And it was powerful too, because it was a poem reflecting on my childhood and issues that I had with my estranged half sister. And so it was a very deep, profound poem. And I was like, oh, that was really easy. It was so easy. And I also will say though, I'd been wanting to, this is a side note, I've been wanting to get back into writing poetry for a long time. I used to, several years back, like 10, 12 years ago. And last night I sat down like a couple hours before I took a bath and was writing some poems. But then once I got out of the tub, I was like, I have this idea and I have to write it down right now. And I ran and wrote it down just as if you were to remember a dream upon waking up and you journal about your dream, which is also connected to the element of water. And so water just signals, I think, something in our subconscious that allows us to process information much quicker. And also water can be very calming for a lot of people. Yeah. Maybe some people don't like to take baths. I think those people are missing out on life. But anyway, I think so. If you can physically get into a tub, do it. But water is so tremendously powerful. And I think that it just ignites something in us on a creative and subconscious level that allows ideas to literally pour out of us. And I don't know if there's any scientific backing for that, but I could see on an energetic level how water could do that.
Before we continue, I'd like to take a moment to share why this work matters. The world doesn't need more noise these days. It needs more thoughtful conversations. That's why I created Wild Souls Gathering in this podcast, spaces where curiosity is welcome, questions are honored, and exploration matters. Each week, I have the privilege of introducing you to inspiring guests and lesser-known voices doing meaningful work in the world. Together, we're exploring what it means to live a more aware and authentic life. If these conversations bring value to you, please subscribe, share the show, and consider supporting Wild Souls Gathering. Your support helps keep this work independent, ad-free, and accessible. Thank you for being here, and now let's get back to the conversation. Well, it's sort of interesting, and this is, going off the beaten path a little bit. So I've done some work with hospice just through my healthcare, and actually was able to pull in my energy work with it, which is always such a treat for an industry that doesn't always have open arms for that. But one of the things that I'll tell you is especially with the elderly population, many of them hadn't taken baths or been in a bathtub for many years or even decades due to their physical decline.
Yeah.
And a lot of the hospice organizations have tubs, and they will place people in the tub and they will talk about how it had been years or even decades since they were able to experience a bath, and how that really shifted their energy and brought a sense of calmness with them. And a lot of them, honestly, opening that conduit of safety for the transition. So it's fascinating that you baths are such a big deal for you, where when they're taken away for whatever reason, they really do bring people back to a very special place. I know that for so many elderly, it was just such a huge gift for them to have that experience.
Thank you for sharing that. That is such a beautiful thing, and it does also make you think about your privilege and your own able-bodiedness and what people can or cannot experience because of their own physical limitations, and also because they just didn't have access. Whereas hospice knew that these elderly folks would not be able to get into the tub without their assistance, but they also had the specialized tubs to be able to do so.
Exactly.
And so that's very quite beautiful. And I knew where you were going when you were talking about it and how it would open up that that safety, right? Like it would almost open up like a safety portal for them to pass in the coming days or in the coming weeks. That's very, very beautiful. It's quite beautiful. And also, since hospice care is supposed to be just pain management until they pass, it's like, it's really gives somebody, it, it helps preserve their dignity or gives them some dignity back that they didn't have previously. And so baths, for me, huge. I would be devastated if I couldn't. I love being outdoors, but I can't. Oh, girl, I cannot get sweaty. Oh, I do not like that element of water. I do not like sweaty. I do not like stink. If I go out on a walk and I get a little sweaty, I'm going and I'm taking a shower, and then and I probably take way too many. I'm not going to explain how many a day I take. It's like 2 or 3. It depends upon what I've done that day. And I only take one long shower though, to be fair. But the point is that I'm just telling on myself. I do a lot of outdoor stuff, so I get like sweaty and I can't stand it because I love being outside.
Well, it's interesting because I'm just the opposite, man. I love like a good hot day, and like some people sweat a little bit, but some people like sweat copiously. Like you'll think that I just came in from the rain. And for me, it just feels good. Like there's something about releasing all that sweat and that work and that energy, and it just puts me in a happy, happy, happy place. Now, I could see where people around me might not be feeling so happy with both with the look and the odor, but just if I get into my own unique personal experience of it, it's such a release, and it's a infusion of happy energy. That's all I can explain. So I think it's important to validate that people experience things differently. So when you're listening to these podcasts and all the different people who talk, discernment is so important.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't, and know that you're not meant to have an experience that maybe is the other person's experience. Just recognize yourself as a unique, human being that you are.
Or maybe a little neurotic, because I am definitely, kind of neurotic. I'm like, oh no, it's hot. I'm going to die. I just can't. But you're made it I would have never survived if it weren't modern day. Would have never. Oh, no. I would just listen. All right. I'm telling on myself. I am very cushy. That's fine. I have so much respect for people who are tougher than me, and I'm okay. I'm okay being a wimp. I'm okay hating the heat, and that's fine. So take that if you need it and leave it if you don't.
Yeah, I say love it and let go of the self-judgment.
Right?
Again, we're all different and unique, and that literally is okay. That's sort of one of the things I like about where we're at now are people are starting to recognize a lot of baggage and beliefs that,
Yeah,
just were never theirs to begin with. And they're breaking out of these boxes and just having these unique experiences of who they are and enjoying different things. And it's, it's okay to embrace difference
absolutely.
versus the same. So I think that this was a good example of that concept.
Oh, absolutely. Fully agree. And also with the element of water and different ways other than showering, right? That we can use it indoors is so simmer pots. Some people love simmer pots. You combine fire and water with a simmer pot where you throw in like some citrus fruits like oranges or lemons, or I usually do oranges and then I'll put in like some apples or something, cranberries, cinnamon sticks, and leave it on your stove. Let it simmer for a couple hours and you pour the water out uh, near your house. And I always like to put an intention into my simmer pot. And it makes the whole house smell amazing. And I had my youngest son's dad, his name is Garrett, and Garrett was like, he walked in one day and he said, "Oh, that smells so good. It smells like cider. It's got apples and cinnamon in it." And I said, "Oh, it won't taste like it." And I was like, and he's like, "Really?" He's like, "I want to try it." And there was nothing inedible in it. So he tried it and he was like, "Oh, that's watery." And I said, "Well, yeah, you can drink it too, I guess." Um, but I like to make simmer pots and pour what's left over out into my yard or in a garden or in I have a few places in my yard that I like to pour those out. So that's a way you can incorporate water inside. You also, as far as internally, pay attention to your dreams. Really truly pay attention to your dreams if there are elements of water or if there are animals that show up in your dreams and try to decode what they mean and journal your dreams. That's a big way that you can connect with water.
I would not have gone down that path. So the water and the dreams have a huge connection to them.
Absolutely. And because it's all about water represents our self-conscious or our subconscious and dreams and our emotions. So water is directly connected to our emotions. Water is also connected to our creativity. So one way that you can bring in the element of water is to paint. It doesn't have to be watercolor paints. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. And you can have an inner water visualization too, where you sit and you do a meditation about, like, if you're feeling very turbulent in your emotions, you can imagine the emotions in your heart calming down. You can imagine your heart is almost like a big glass window, like a heart-shaped glass window. I like to think of it as like, like the portholes, like in a ship where you look out the porthole and you can see like the water all sloshing around or whatever, like if it's turbulent waters. Well, if you envision, I know this might sound like a really silly way to envision this, but it's whatever. It's my way to envision it. So sometimes, like, I think of whenever I'm sitting and doing a water meditation, I'll think of my heart as like a big heart shaped porthole, and I'll see the waters being very turbulent, and then I just watch them calm, and then I'll imagine like dolphins, like where I can see dolphins like jumping up and flipping and like rebuilding joy in my heart or bringing more joy into my heart and really calming my own waters down. And I'll sit in a meditation like that probably for about 15 or 20 minutes. And it usually starts as if I'm feeling dysregulated, that meditation will start with me seeing like a big storm or big giant waves or whatever, and then it calms. And so you can do that any way that you like. You can imagine that's water rolling throughout your entire body in a turbulent fashion and then calming down as a way to help regulate emotions. And you can sit in that as long as you'd like. So this is something that I really like to do. I manifest and bring things in with my simmer pots, and I pour them out and I pour my wishes out around my property, right? And then I release them into nature in that way and therefore into the universe. But something that I like to do if I want to get rid of something and not just bring it to me, um, because it can really go either way, just the same with fire. I like to sit with a bowl of water. I have a very specific bowl I do this with. It's like a clear blue glass. It's a Pyrex dish from like the 80s. And I fill it up with spring water and I buy it from the store, so I don't get like real fancy with it. But anyway, because it's accessible, whatever. If I'm near a spring, that's cool, but I'm not near any springs where I live. I'll take a little bit of coarse sea salt and put it into the bowl, and I'll speak to the bowl of water and talk about something that I want to let go of. So whether it's a resentment towards someone or whether it's a situation I no longer want to deal with, anything that's deeply emotional, or sometimes I will put my tendency to get migraines into the bowl. And then I will toss it out on like a street or something so it'll evaporate and be gone instead of in my yard where my simmer pot stuff goes.
Okay,
So,
interesting.
but the same is like so I'm in Knoxville, so I will drive to North Carolina. And a few months ago, I went to Brevard, and when I was in Brevard, my husband and I were looking at all these waterfalls. There's just a ton of waterfalls in Brevard, North Carolina. And at like where there was kind of a stream down from the waterfalls, I would put my hands in, and I would say, want to bring abundance to me, like abundance will flow to me just as this water flows, or my migraines will go away just as this water rushes from my hands, right? Or rushes over my hands. And so there's different ways that you can speak to it. And of course, I'm doing this. And then Larry, my husband's over here, like 5 feet from me doing this. And he's like, oh, this place is really cool. Like, you got to move your hands, like, come over here. Right. And it's all very fun. And I'm there to hang out with the waterfalls and talk to whatever fairies or dragons or whatever may be in the ethers over there. Right. And so there's lots of ways that you can use water to release, but also bring things to you. Sometimes I will take a bay leaf and I'll like make a wish into a bay leaf and throw it into a stream. And I actually like, if I'm going somewhere where I know that there are falls, I will bring bay leaves with me, or I'll find a leaf on the way and pray into it. Some people like to write on them. Some people just take like a marker and write on them. I don't do that because I get a little worried about like the chemicals in a marker, but I'm sure you could find something that's body safe or environmentally friendly you could use, or maybe charcoal. I haven't tried that, but I'm sure you could do it and dissipate it.
Well, thank you for being so open and willing to share those real life experiences and your use of the element of water and the outcomes that you had. Real quick, as we're winding up right now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Veda Austin and her work with water, but she's a water researcher who does a lot with emotions in water. So a lot of people will infuse their water. They'll write like love and peace on their water. I think we're going to find that water plays so much bigger of a role than we're already aware of as we move forward with our awareness and clarity. What are your thoughts about that type of work and those type of practices real quick?
I think that's amazing. And like I was saying earlier, how you don't think of fire as a body with living things in it, but you do think of water. You think of oceans and lakes and puddles with tadpoles and whatever. And so if you want to incorporate living water every day, or if you want to incorporate, which is basically what she's talking about, is putting like the emotions and the intentions into water and then drinking it, you absolutely can do that. You can also, I make lemon water because I view it as like a living water. And I don't drink it all the time, but I try to, like, I don't know, a few times a week. I should probably do it more frequently than that. But I get a fresh lemon and squeeze it into water, and then that's cool. Like, that's good for me for that day. Because you want something living, you want something with natural enzymes in it that's actually like promoting digestion in your body. Everything in your body relies on your cellular function, and your cellular function
Yeah.
relies on water and hydration. And
Right.
so that's really incredible. And there's also, um, like, have you seen the studies of where snowflakes have been frozen after like a bottle or a bowl of water has been spoken to in a
Yes.
particular way, or music has been played near it, and then it changes the structure of the snowflake? Like
So that's
they
the premise of Veda Austin's work. That's exactly what she's doing and researching.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really amazing. You can do that. And also, one other thing when it comes to water, I think about music and poetry and dancing to a certain extent. I think about dancing more so with fire, but intuitive art or like acrylic pours or anything, really anything, painting, anything where you really have to be in a creative state of flow, right? And then you have flow and then you you have water. Anything like that also brings in the element into your daily practice if you allow it to. Those are all related to the element of water.
Wow, this has been a really stimulating conversation. Kimmy, thank you for helping us explore the wisdom of the element of water and how it can support emotional balance and flow in our lives. To learn more about Kimmy's services, or if you would like to book an appointment, you can go to her website, kimmyhaliburda.psychic.com, and that's KIMMIEHALIBURDA, kimmyhaliburda.psychic.com. And to learn more about our work at Happy Hour, you can go to wildsoulsgathering.com. And for all of you who are listening, I invite you to spend a little time this week noticing where water shows up in your world, whether it's a river, the ocean, rain, or even the simple act of slowly drinking a glass of water with intention. Sometimes the most powerful regulation tools are the ones that have been surrounding us all along. Join us next time as we continue this series and explore air, another powerful element of nature, and how it can support and balance resilience in modern life. Until then, stay curious and stay connected to the natural world around us. Thanks, Kimmy.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube. And if you'd like to explore these topics more deeply, visit wildsoulsgathering.com, where you'll find free resources and guided practices designed to support your own journey of curiosity, healing, and personal growth. This is Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love.